Martin Glenn joined Walker's Snack Foods in 1992, becoming president in 1998 and president of PepsiCo UK in 2003. During this time, Walker's became the UK's best, fastest growing FMCG business and number one brand. This is the story of how to build a high-performance company and how leadership works in practice, told by Martin Glenn and the team who made it happen.
The roots of the Walker's business is fantastic, actually. It started off as a pork pie shop back in, who knows when, back at the turn of the century. And it was happily making pork pies and things until the end of the Second World War. Walker's Crisp was deliberately just sold in the Leicestershire area up until about 1966. And I think by that stage they'd stumbled on the fact that they were making a good product. And they're up against companies at the time like Golden Wonder that was owned by Imperial Tobacco, KP that was owned by United Biscuits, big companies. Yet in the Midlands area, the Leicestershire area, they were more than holding their own against them, and I thought we might have something here. Yeah, the virtuous circle with respect to how I think we built the Walker's brand is a pretty simple mnemonic, if you like, for remembering some good things that you can easily pass on to people. So it starts with quality. So if you have a high quality product and you keep it and you sell it fresh, it will sell faster. It has higher margins because it sells faster, which allows you to reinvest in demand building, like advertising, like selling, which will sell it faster still. And if you get on that loop, then you're in good shape. It's horrible if you go the other way. Good teams have a combination of people that are smart enough to understand what their mission is, are diverse enough to spark off each other. I've normally got one contrarian in there that will tell you how it is and doesn't mind whether he pisses you off or not, but the team moves on as a result of that. Once you've got the right people, and there's never any recipe for this, but what I've found by virtue of learning lessons the hard way and finding my high-performing teams weren't high-performing, a few lessons from life. Give people enough room. I've never seen a high-performance team that is micromanaged. And I think that applies whether they're directly within your own sphere of control or whether you're dealing with a high-performing advertising team or consultancy that you might get in to help you do things. Recognize people's expertise. Don't micromanage them, is first one. Secondly, let them know or try and persuade them that their work is useful. Great teams are on a mission from God a lot of the time. They have to go and get something done. And then a practical thing really, give people enough room financially to make mistakes and cover that themselves. And it's actually about budget setting. Now, I've worked in businesses where there's incredibly tight budgetary control in everything you did. Fine, no one ever steals anything. But people are scared to death about doing much either and missing. So setting budgets that allow people wriggle room, I think, is important. And a climate where you simply do not punish mistakes. Don't blamestorm, brainstorm, and mistakes are good. And if you have people that can never admit they make mistakes, you never learn anything anyway. So that's really important because that feeds off of itself and you tend to get better work. I think there's a very good body of evidence around change and continuity that says the great companies and the great brands have a continuity at their core. So if you look at the Porras and Collins book, Built to Last, which is a book which is objectively based in empirical evidence, it tells you that the companies that have been around for hundreds of years are ones that are typically have continuity in people, continuity in strategy, and continuity in execution standards. And they are the ones that stand the test of time. Now the brands adapt, the companies adapt to different life changes, but a continuity of management, I think especially, is critical. An old manager in Germany said to me, don't confuse sending someone to the front to find out what's going on with going yourself. And I think it's very important, and I'm a big fan of data. We use market research. It's not a Luddite reaction here to things, but I've never ever regretted a field visit to this with a company with a sales rep, a visit to the factory, a visit to the distribution centre, a visit to a supplier, you always learn something new, always. We are a multi-touch point kind of business where individual decisions can have a really big multiplier effect. So there is a great business case for engagement. We have a formal process of checking employee regard, as we call it. Every couple of years we do a massive survey of the business. It's anonymously filled in. We give people time off to do it, and we get a very good snapshot for what's going well. So employee pride is a good continuous kind of spine of this business. 85% of people saying they're proud to work at Walkers, which I think in a British business is, given the natural reticence of Brits, is great. But we also know where we're falling short and how we might go and address it. So measurement's important, but it goes actually a lot beyond that. We like to have a culture where people feel they've got a stake in the business, and that requires two other strands. Firstly is give people a stake in the business. So every one of our employees gets 10% of their wages as PepsiCo stock every year. Everybody. And that is a dramatically powerful program. So we've got people in our factories who will, when I do roundtables, actually talk to you about, well, what do you think the prognosis is for PepsiCo stock price? What's the PE ratio doing? Quite surprising. And you can accumulate over the years quite significant sums of money. Secondly, it's helping people really to understand how a commercial enterprise works. But people, working on, typically in the front line of our businesses, but beyond that, aren't really, and you wouldn't expect them to be very commercially aware. Why do you need to make a profit? Is often a question that gets raised. Why is this level of profitability right? What's legitimate? And we have a very formalised program of learning maps where we, and it sounds fairly clunky and even patronising, it's not, trust me, but we have a business education program for all of our people which gets them to understand how we make the product, why financial returns are important, what customers are looking for, what consumers are looking for. And we spend a lot of time with our teams explaining to them how the business is, good and bad. We don't it's not a propaganda exercise that we just tell them the good news and when we're doing well. There's been an investment in dialogue over the years that I think's paid back. Big brands lose it for three reasons, I think. You either lose the quality advantage, and that seems to happen a lot in food and drink just as technology changes. That's one. Two, you get arrogant about price and you believe that your brand is so strong it can command a massive premium, typically versus private label, because there's not often a number two brand there. Or thirdly, you lose contact with teens. Teens are still, whilst they're quite a relatively small part of the total market now as we're all getting older, they're vital in terms of recruitment for the next cohort of brand users. And big brands like Walkers, I think, can run the risk of, on the latter camp, of losing touch with teens. So where we're probably most open to change and challenge is that whole area. How do you keep the brand fresh and make sure it's not a bunch of middle-aged white men like me running it in our own likeness? And that is a challenge. I think we've managed it.